what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Chad Townsend Show. Today's podcast is brought to you by playersgolfclub.com.au. Head over to the website, check out the merchandise. We've got hats, t-shirts, polos, accessories, membership. It's all there. Make sure you check it out. The new Players Club Championships collection is available now as well. See the hat that I'm wearing, t-shirt, the nice green and cream. It goes absolutely pristine together. And we're super stoked with it. So make sure you check it out. playersgolfclub.com.au. On today's podcast, we have another teammate of mine, special guest, and he's a New South Welshman, like myself, up here in enemy territory. We brought him on today, Reece Robson. Mate, thanks for coming on.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
Mate, we're going to just go a bit of a deep dive into your journey so far and over your football career. And you grew up in northern New South Wales, Murwillumbah. Was it Murbar?
Murbar, mate.
Mate, tell me about Murbar. How was that growing up?
Oh, mate, interesting place growing up, but no, I actually loved it. It's still got a fair bit of family there on my mum's side, still there, so I get back every now and then and see them. But I was out on a little farm there, so yeah.
So you're a country boy. Country boy.
Yeah,
I don't know about that, mate.
We have this argument, mate, but I am the country boy out of the two of us. Out of the two of us, I can't stress that enough. Not a country boy, but out of the two of us.
Yeah, I mean, I do get the city boy tag, but you know, I grew up on the outskirts of Sydney. I wouldn't say I'm an actual city boy, but
Silver spoon.
I'm definitely not silver spoon. Wooden spoon.
The wooden spoon.
So how far is Murbar from the Queensland border?
Oh, probably half an hour. Yeah, not far at all.
So you just scrape in?
Mate, we're close enough just to hate them.
Which we'll get into a bit later on. We're going to have a good chat about that. But growing up in Murbar, how was it? What were some of the things you did growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I guess just touching back from the country days out on the farm. Mate, I used to do a lot of, I was just hanging out with my older brother, so we always had mates out there. Actually, a fair bit to do out on the farm, so used to just, funny, none of it involved farming or anything like that. We'd probably be out there riding skateboards or building jumps there for our bikes and that, so that's probably a lot of our days consisted of, and when we'd have mates over, we had a little horse there that people would just sort of leave in our paddock there, and we'd tell them that they were rideable, so just had a lot of fun there, just telling our mates you were able to ride them and watch them try to get on these horses that never been ridden before.
So you would say that you grew up as an outdoor kid? Would you say that?
Very much an outdoor kid, mate.
I just thought you might. Just looking at you, I just thought you might have been indoor PlayStation.
No, mate,
kid.
you wouldn't have seen my gamer tag online back then. No, mate. It was
a few personal jokes for people who may not know. We just sort of give each other a bit of stick about being indoors. I grew up in the 90s, so I was lucky. We didn't have technology, all that stuff. We were outdoors riding bikes and stuff.
Still found a way to be inside though, didn't you?
Definitely not. Mate, what age did you start playing footy and who did you play for when you were a young fella?
I started playing soccer when I was real young, and then I guess under sixes I went across because so brother was a bit older and we both sort of got to an age where we were sick of playing soccer and wanted to go play some footy and mum and dad finally let us. So I started in under sixes. I started playing footy.
Yep. And did you who was the local team?
Wollumbar Colts. So just
junior club.
Junior club. Yeah, Wollumbar Colts there. So I played there till I moved down to Sydney when I was 15. So yeah.
What are your greatest memories of the Colts as a junior club?
I guess I had a lot of fun down there. We were by no means the best side in the comp. We were probably down the bottom end more often than not. But I always just loved playing with my mates, and I reckon I learned a lot of sort of life lessons being in that side. I guess obviously not being one of the better teams, it sort of gives you a bit more of that work ethic at a young age, and I guess it's probably a lot I've taken from that. That I brought into my NRL career so far.
And who did you support growing up when you were a young fella? Local, I guess the closest team was probably the Titans, I'd assume. Who did you support them, or did you support someone else, or what was the go there?
I was still pretty young, I guess, when the Titans come in. But when I was obviously first born, you sort of just follow your dad, and he was always a Manly Sea Eagles fan, and I love the snake. So Brett Stewart. So massive Manly fan growing up. Yeah, and with that sort of comes a bit of a stigma. You either love them or you hate them. So I was always in fights over that.
So, because again, we've spoken about this a lot, and I do know that Brett Stewart's one of your favourite players. And tell me briefly now about the time you met the snake. When was that?
Was it Hotel Stein in Manly? Yeah.
Was it 2022 that year?
2022. Yeah, when we had the massive comeback. Yeah, Val scored on the bell to beat Manly down there. So went out for a few drinks and. Yeah, people say never want to meet your heroes, but actually did. And yeah, mate, he was just everything I wanted him to be, mate. He was awesome. So I had a great night with him. And yeah, so a few of the stories from the team he used to support in the day, back in the day. So hearing a few of those stories from him was pretty cool.
He's a great fella, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I only just had a brief chat to him as well, not fanboying as much as you did, but he seemed like very relaxed, very easygoing, very easy to talk to, and he seemed like he was willing to like just give you
Yeah, mate.
the time.
Yeah, cruisy as. Like,
Yeah.
I was probably surprised on how cruisy he was.
Yeah.
I just remember him saying football's just something he did so he could get out on the piss after. So, and to be such the great player he was, man, it's pretty funny to hear.
He had a phenomenal career too, as well. I mean, what age, as you grow up, like you started at the Colts, grew up, played your junior footy. You said you weren't really in a team that sort of had too much success being as a young fella, but as you progress, what age did you start to think like, hey, like I'm actually pretty good at footy, or I want to play in the NRL? What do you remember having those feelings?
I guess as far as wanting to play in the NRL was pretty much as soon as I started watching it, I was old enough to watch it and understand the game. I wanted to play NRL. Just before growing up watching Manly, seeing them win comps and following such great players in that team. I guess always wanted to play in the NRL. It was always a dream. I guess probably when I moved to Sydney, I guess, and started getting in a few rep sides and coming through the ranks there at the Dragons was when I sort of started believing that I'm good enough to play in the NRL, and that's when it started to become more of a reality that there was sort of no other option then, and that's what I wanted to do. But I guess the dream was always from a young age, whether I was going to make it or not. That's what I wanted to do, and then I guess once I started making a few teams and that sort of thing is when I realised that's what I had to do. Yeah, pretty much so.
Definitely, and we'll get into your journey and moving and things like that, which I really want to talk about. But so you tell me about the first time you signed a contract with an NRL team. I think it was was it the Dragons?
Yep.
So tell me about how that happened.
So I guess obviously ended up moving down there when I was 15. And caught the back end. I was sort of doing the summer squads and that up at the Titans and that sort of thing, but ended up moving down to Sydney, just with the fam, and that's sort of where we ended up at the time. And ended up catching the back end of the Harold Matt season at the Sharks, actually. So, back to your day, mate. You were probably there playing NRL when I was just caught the back end of the Harold Matts there. And I played a couple of games that year, just sort of, just off the bench, just come and played a few here and there. And then... that season obviously ended and went back and played for De La Salle. Actually got a lot of great mates there still in Caringbah. And, so that's sort of where my footy started in Sydney and ended up getting picked up from, the great Pete Mulholland, passed away now. So, but he was probably the main person that sort of got me into an NRL system and sort of, went on from there. But, he took me to the Dragons where I sort of started playing my SG ball.
Yep.
And that was just pretty much just picked to play, no contracts or anything like that. But I was just stoked with that at the time. So playing footy, which is sort of funny going to the Dragons because Dad always hated them growing up because that's what my mum went for, and she loved it. But Dad was all still hardcore Manly fan at that point. But I guess, and then I end up moving into the 20s is where I signed my first NRL contract, and I think it was the minimum at the time. But from jumping from nothing, just sort of happy and stoked just being able to pull on a jersey and play for an NRL club.
Yep.
Even though it was only at Harold Matts level, but SG ball level was pretty cool. But then to sign my first NRL contract in under 20s was sick.
Yeah, I love that. Mate, we'll take it back just a couple steps to your move to Sydney. And, you've moved around a few times like myself and, moving is a big part in our game and what we do and chasing opportunity and, being wanted and a lot of that stuff. So, how was your experience moving to Sydney? You mentioned that you were able to move with your family as well. Was that a massive help for you?
Massive. So, obviously I owe a lot to Mum and Dad. Obviously always loved rugby league, massive rugby league family, and they've supported my journey immensely. So I can't thank them enough for that. But it was just sort of got to a time. Dad's a builder, and work was probably getting a bit quiet around the sort of Northern Rivers, Tweed Heads area where we were living at the time. And what's it called? So I guess there was kind of a point there where it was time to either move to find a bit of work, and my brother had just been signed with Newcastle at the time. So it just made sense to move down to Sydney, be closer to him, as well as sort of, a bit more opportunity for work and football for myself. So, and just, like you said, having Mum and Dad move down and still being able to live at home through those early years of trying to make it into the NRL just made it so much easier.
Yeah, bloody oath, because you hear so many stories of guys moving teams or having to move countries or states or whatever it is and becoming homesick and, missing family and friends. Did you ever get homesick, or was the fact that you had that family support from mum and dad, which was so important, like sort of ease that and made it so much more comfortable?
Obviously at the start, didn't get homesick. Obviously having mum and dad there made it so much easier. But so I guess I probably did experience it a little bit. So they were down there for a couple of years when I first sort of started playing footy down there, and then once they sort of knew I was settled in there, I guess it was time for them to sort of move back up to Tweed Heads, where I still had my sister in that and still had a lot of family in that living around that area. So they moved back up there, and I guess for that first year out of home, probably just sort of to make me spag bowl, and that was about it. So I had that 3 times a week, and by that point I was lucky to meet a lot of good friends and that down there. So I always had all my mates were still living at home. So me and my other mate that had moved out together, that was the house to be at. So I kind of had that, which was pretty good. So there's probably too much going on to ever feel too homesick. So
you made a lot of good friends around that area, didn't you? Like around Cronulla, mate. Living out of home, didn't you?
Yeah. So I used to do the commute down to because I finished school there at De La Salle and Endeavour there. So I met a lot of great mates in that area. So I guess when sort of football started taking off and down at Wollongong was where all the Dragons training was based, I decided to pretty much just stay in Cronulla because all my good mates were there away from footy, and it sort of took my head out of footy a little bit too. So obviously I'd be travelling down, training all day, thinking footy, and then, mate, it was just good to sort of come back home and sort of have those boys that sort of couldn't give a shit about it. So that was the best part.
So you've just recapping, you've left northern New South Wales, moved to Sydney with your family. Dad's moved down there for work. It's been a great transition to have their support. And then after a couple of years, they move back. You stay down there, move out with one of your mates, and then this is kind of when, I guess you start becoming more like full time as a footballer with the Dragons.
Yep.
Sign your deal to sort of train and play with the Dragons, playing 20s probably at this stage.
Yep.
And then just before you make your NRL, you said you had that crew at the Dragons as well, where when you sort of came in, they were kind of playing some pretty good football.
Yep.
Tell me a bit about your time early at the Dragons with some of those older guys, and how your relationship was with them at coming into, I guess, the full-time training system of an NRL squad.
Yeah, well, I guess sort of like you said, mum and dad kind of moved back sort of the same sort of year. I guess I'd just finished school, and then I guess that was sort of time for them to move back up to Tweed Heads, and then from there I pretty much went straight out of school into full-time NRL training, and hadn't made my debut yet at that point. So my first pre-season was probably pretty tough, like obviously you expect, but I didn't really know what to expect, so I'm thinking I've got me shot here in NRL pre-season. I've trained the house down, didn't even have an off-season pretty much, so thought like I was ready to play football by day one of pre-season. So I probably did. I didn't.
One of those ones.
Yeah, I didn't. I was ready for round one already, but I didn't. Probably looking back, obviously, it's probably a bit of a silly move now. Obviously, you want to try to impress because obviously you're not playing NRL at that point, so training's your time to impress the coaches, and so that was sort of probably my downfall that year. So I sort of come into training really fit, trained really well up until Christmas, and I guess when I come back from Christmas is probably when I hit a bit of a brick wall there. I was sleeping between field and gym in the Arvo. Yeah, I was pretty run down and wrecked at that point. I guess leading up to the NRL, you sort of all your footy pretty much starts straight after Christmas, all your trials and that sort of stuff. So, but being in that full-time system, it sort of didn't start for another couple months after Christmas. So the body kind of wasn't ready for that. So I definitely started to feel it then, and that's where it probably took me till about around 4 or 5 to start feeling good again. So and that's what I guess you sort of hear all the stories of pre-seasons being tough on young fellas, and I guess that's probably a fair bit into it. You're just not knowing what to expect, and you're sort of giving it everything and not knowing how to sort of pace yourself a little bit. So I think that's where it sort of caught me a little bit off guard.
Would you say that you learn a few lessons from going through that? Like, and what changes did you make, going into some more pre-seasons as you got older?
Definitely learnt plenty from that first pre-season, and you sort of, obviously, like you said, we had a pretty good side down there at the Dragons, and had a lot of good older boys that you sort of always chat to and learn a lot off, and that's probably the main thing they sort of teach you is sort of just enjoy your time away from football, because I guess it's sort of something you don't realise as a young bloke, but it's so important, like especially when you get into those systems and that sort of footy is everything from day one of pre-season till the end of your last game that year. So I guess you sort of got to enjoy that off season as much as you can, and everyone does. Everyone starts training again just so they're not too out of shape by the time you get back to pre-season, because obviously it's just day one's too hard. But I guess that's what I've learned, to really kind of give myself a few weeks there straight after the season to sort of switch off from footy and kind of treat yourself like shit for a little bit, just to help the mindset, really.
Well, 100%, and I'm a big advocate for this. Like you look at our season, 27 weeks a year, 27 rounds, right? 24 games, 4 weeks of finals. So there's 31 weeks where you've got to be fit. Plus, pre-season, 9 weeks off over the summer, 2 weeks off over Christmas, 11 weeks. So 52, like minus 11, there's 43 weeks of the year. You've got to be fit and rare and ready to go. Yep. So in that 9 weeks, you need to rest, recover, switch off, eat some bad food, not exercise, because that rest is so important. But as a youngster, you're right, because you just want to train. You want to make it. Did you put, when you were a youngster, did you put a lot of pressure on yourself? Looking back on it now, where you think, I should put so much pressure on myself and get down from, if I didn't train well, or if don't get me wrong, I still know that happens to some extent, but did you put a lot of pressure on yourself when you're young?
Definitely, and like you just sort of touched on there, I guess it's still something you still work on to this day. Like, you're always trying to, obviously, self-inflicted pressure is good, it gets you to where you want to be, it's that drive, I guess, but just knowing sort of that limit and when to switch off and sort of just let yourself know it's okay. Like, you don't always have to be on, and to be able to switch off mentally is sort of something that you probably been my biggest growth as a footballer going forward, is sort of like I mentioned earlier, as a young fella, you're just trying to impress all the time. Mentally and physically being at your best for 43 weeks, like you said. Like, it's the physical part's probably not the hardest part. It's mentally being ready and making sure that you're sort of right every week, whether you're playing football. And at that stage where you're making it into the NRL, it's sort of, you're at a stage there where you're making sure you're ready just in case. Like, most of the time you're playing cup or 20s or whatever we were playing at that time, but still being ready to play NRL if that's what happened that week. It only takes an injury or something, just an opportunity there. And if you're not ready, it's sort of, you kind of miss it. The boat comes and goes. So, I guess that's probably the hardest period. You sort of keeping yourself physically and mentally ready and not really getting the reward for it. I guess that's probably the hardest part of that transition into the NRL, is staying ready and not getting that sort of reward until it comes. And and I guess that's sort of something I've worked on, especially now. I know it's a bit easier when you're playing NRL each week. It's sort of that pressure there. It's still very individualised on wanting to keep yourself ready to help the team and play your best footy to help the team. It sort of turns that sort of mindset, which obviously has helped me a lot, whereas back then you're just trying to make it into the NRL. That's your goal. Oh,
definitely, 100%. I think, just lastly, to add on to that, you and I have spoken about this as well, about compartmentalising life now. And as you get older, you've just become a dad for the first time. You've got, partner, baby, interests outside of football. Tell me about the growth you've made in regards to compartmentalising life and putting energy into those type of areas.
Yeah, like you just mentioned, just had a little Hazel. Was she 3 months now? So, that definitely, it sort of throws you into that sort of, compartmentalising like we spoke about before. It's sort of so important in rugby league, and it helps so much just having her there to come home to. It sort of switches your mindset from footy to dad life pretty quickly. And, and it's honestly, it only helps your football, I think, and you'd know pretty well with your four at home, but definitely just having them to come home to, it's just sort of it helps that switch off from footy, and it's sort of, you don't have a choice. You can't think about footy sometimes. You're in dad mode, and and that's the best thing, because then you get through those doors in the morning at training, you can switch on, think about footy and then straight as soon as you leave, it helps you just sort of flick that switch. Yep,
I couldn't agree more with you, mate. That's spot on, mate. Let's touch on your NRL debut. We've sort of covered your, I guess, your early days at the Dragons, but obviously you've worked your way up, you've trained your absolute backside off, and you've got to a point now where you've major NRL debut. Tell me about your debut. Who called you? Who told you? How did it happen? Did you get called in an office? Was it on a phone? Who did you play? Tell me everything.
It was actually an interesting one, how I found out about my debut. It was sort of mixed emotions because at that time, like we mentioned when I come into the Dragons, they had a good side, and they were going really well that year, actually. They'd won their first 9 out of 12, I think, straight. So, when I come into that side, they were coming number one on the ladder. So, I guess at that point, I probably wasn't expecting to make my debut, but, they're going so well. You're not expecting changes and that in the team. But, obviously shows, what a great coach Mary was down there when I heard him to sort of put that faith in me to sort of go out there and make my debut when they're on top of the ladder. So, I guess that was a bit of pressure, but the way I found out was sort of an interesting way because we actually weren't going that good in New South Wales Cup. We had a pretty good side there coming through at the Dragons, like a lot of good juniors, but to start the year we just hadn't quite clicked yet, and we were playing pretty poorly and weren't getting the results we needed. So we're sort of a few of the sort of senior guys of that New South Wales Cup side were in Mary's office, and I didn't really realise this until he mentioned it at the end, but there's probably 4 or 5 of us, and the other 4 had all had NRL experience, and probably, it was probably on us a little bit at New South Wales Cup level to be sort of leading that team, and that's kind of all Mary said in that meeting was just said, he just went around the team.
So you are all there, all in the office together?
The 5 of us, all in the office together, and sort of getting a spray for not going that well, and then I just remember him going around the room. He's like, I just expect you boys to sort of lift that side. And he's going around, I think it was Matt Duffy, Blake Laurie, Jacob Host in there, those sort of fellas. And we're going around the side, and he's just like, mate, you've had NRL experience. Expect better out of you. Like in New South Wales Cup, you've had NRL experience. Yours is coming up this weekend. And I forgot about New South Wales Cup. I didn't care about the spray anymore. I'm just thinking, he didn't say what I think he said. I'm thinking, anyway, I'm sort of sitting there, finished the meeting, and he's like, all right, boys, you just can go now. Robbo, stay behind. And obviously knew what that was about. He sort of mentioned it in that way. And so I've gone from sort of going, we need to get a New South Wales side, New South Wales Cup side back on track to sort of, I'm making a debut. And I knew, because obviously you're following the NRL side, I knew we were versus Melbourne that week, so I'm rolling through the forward pack as we're finishing that meeting. Who have I got to tackle this weekend? They got some big boys in their side, and that's what I was kind of thinking. And obviously that meeting finished, and Mary asked me to stay behind, and the mood changed pretty quick. He sort of congratulated me and just said, look, mate, like I just mentioned before, you're making your NRL debut, and I just couldn't wait to get out of that office and go and give me dad a call. So that was probably, I just didn't want to stuff anything up in that meeting. I was like, thanks, mate, thank you. Just wanted to get out of there and give your dad a call before he changed his mind. So, so that's how I found out about my debut. And, it was just awesome just being able to call me old now. I still remember walking out onto the field at that win there just out the back of the sheds just to give him a call.
How was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was sick. Like, I think he was just at work, and I sort of, the way I answered the phone, when he answered the phone, he knew I was awkward, but could tell, and I think he knew it was what I was about to tell him. So so he was stoked, and just to be able to tell mum and dad, obviously after we spoke about all the sacrifice they made for us boys growing up to play footy, and they knew how bad we wanted it, and gave us every opportunity to make it. So I guess it was sort of a chance to sort of thank them by being able to tell them that. Yeah,
I think I had Griff on the other week and spoke to him about him moving from Greymouth and the sacrifices and help his parents made. Like when you think about your journey and then the sacrifices you make and then your parents make, and then to be able to actually make that phone call, it's like, this is the phone call I've been wanting to do my whole life. Yeah. Were you did your dad show much emotion, or was he like pretty old school? Was he just pretty happy, or? He was stoked. What's it called? I guess we'll probably move on to that a little bit later in the podcast, but no, he wasn't probably too emotional. Yep. What's it called? Just very happy for me. Obviously, knew how hard I'd worked for that, and I think he's probably just a bit more relieved too, because he knew how badly I wanted it, and honestly, he wanted it just as bad as I did. So I could tell how happy he was just on that phone call. But. And how was the game? How did you go? We won, actually. Not that I did much. I only had to come on the last 10 minutes or something. So I'm sitting there on the bench at Cogra, and had a bit of fan there. A few mates flown down from Tweed Heads and that I went to school with growing up, and had many mates there from Cronulla and that too. So, it was sick. It was honestly just down the road for them and where I was living too. So had a fair crew there, and I'm sitting there, and it's half time's come, still not on.
I just want to get out there. And palms are sweating. I'm like, dude, I'm going to throw a footy out of here. I was that sweaty on the bench. I was sweating more than when I was out there. And I'm just sort of waiting. And then luckily, like I said, we had a great side at that time. And they'd sort of, pretty much, there wasn't much for me to do out there. Just go out and finish the game. They'd sort of got us to a position where we couldn't really lose the game. And I was lucky enough to just go out and just enjoy the last 10 minutes of it without sort of the pressure of playing NRL, I guess, because I just got out to go out and have some fun. And, they'd sort of got us into a position where we were winning and generally probably couldn't lose from that point. So, to be able to sort of go out there and just play my NRL debut without stress was pretty cool, and sort of just be able to go out and enjoy it, and playing against guys like Cameron Smith that you grow up as a hooker, just idolising. To have my first game against him, and sort of, he's obviously filthy after the game because they just lost, and I'm thanking him for the game, and I sort of forgot about the result. I didn't care, just sort of shaking him and Billy Slater's hands after the end of the game was so awesome. And I still remember, I think, when I first got out there, I'm pretty sure I chased him across like 3 blokes to tackle Billy Slater one, and I was just so excited to be out there, and that was like my claim to fame. My first game, I was like, I tackled Billy Slater. It was awesome. I think I was probably third man in, 2 boys had already wrapped him up. I was just third man in, just stoked. So I was just sort of burnt that much energy in the last 10 minutes, but it was sick.
I love that. That's awesome. All right, so you moved to Sydney, you make all these sacrifice. You play your NRL debut, and then over the course of the next 2 years, I think you play 20 odd games for the Dragons. You get to a point where you're off contract now, and you make a decision to leave the Dragons for another opportunity with the Cowboys. How did that come about, and was that a tough decision to leave the Dragons, and why did you decide to leave?
Massive decision to leave the Dragons. I guess that's probably. I guess obviously a lot of boys have had a lot worse, but I guess in my sort of football career, that was probably my first hardship. I guess sort of realising my sort of avenue at the Dragons was blocked there. I guess that was a hard pill to swallow. Obviously Cameron McInnes was there at the time, and he was playing great footy there at hooker, so that was kind of in my position there. So that's where I knew my sort of avenue was blocked. But I guess sort of coming through, you're sort of, progressing from SG Ball to 20s to New South Wales Cup, you sort of, it's all going pretty well. And, you sort of, even though I knew he was there playing good football, I never really accepted that I was going to have to go elsewhere. I thought it would kind of, I don't want to be selfish and say like it's kind of just going to make way for me to sort of make my transition in there, because I love the Dragons. I have so many great mates, still got some great mates there. A lot have moved on to other clubs, but that I've met from the Dragons that I still keep in touch with, and it's like nothing's changed when we catch up again. But it's to sort of know that I'm not going to be able to just, stay in that routine of where I was living with my mates, sort of just going down to footy there. It was all going well. I guess it all hit me a little bit at sort of So I've come into me last year, the preseason me last year, and my contract there at the Dragons, and obviously that's sort of when your negotiations sort of start to sort of re-sign with the club and that sort of thing. And then I sort of started to look at, I was at a point there, like I said, I'd sort of played, there's actually only 9, I played there over 2 years, from when I made my debut in 2018 and 2019, that I'd sort of played 9 games over those 2 years, and I was like, at a stage there, I was like, all right, I played 20s, I've sort of done my trade a little bit in 20s New South Wales Cup, that sort of thing, and I was ready to sort of take that step to the NRL, and I love the club, and I sort of spoke to them at the time, and they wanted to re-sign me at the time too, but with Cam being there at hooker, it was sort of always going to be a sort of roll off the bench, I guess, and without the potential to sort of move into that starting role, and I guess that was probably the thing I sort of, at that point, that was more important to me than anything. At that stage in my life, that I wanted to sort of at least have the opportunity to progress into that, which sort of wasn't there at the Dragons, and that's sort of what made my decision. I love the club, left on good terms, but that's sort of when I spoke to my manager at the time and just sort of said, I'm probably not happy just doing what I've done over the last couple of seasons, come off the bench, play a little bit of hook, a little bit of lock when needed, whatever it was, but so I guess, and only playing, minimal minutes, 20, 30 minutes each week, I sort of wanted to have that opportunity like we spoke about. So that was probably the biggest thing when I sort of went onto the market a little bit that year, to sort of find another club. And fortunate enough, I sort of had a pretty good sort of junior career, like with SG20s and Cup and that I kind of had a few offers there, so I was lucky in that regard. So I guess after that, sort of I knew I was leaving the Dragons. Then sort of started looking at my best opportunity, and that was sort of all I looked at. I didn't really worry about how much I was signing for or any of that sort of stuff. And I just wanted opportunity to sort of
start and play
hooker, and I kind of was confident enough if I could get that, then I could hopefully show. And then I guess you sort of worry about contracts and that after that, and that's all I was sort of worried about. And I wanted to go to a team that I've seen a lot of progress in, and so that's kind of what brought me to the Cowboys was when obviously Greenie and Peter Parr were up here, and so that's sort of where the conversation started with them. And there's a couple of other clubs too, but it was sort of Cowboys was sort of, I guess I seen the most potential in that club out of the ones that I got offered from, and that was sort of where I seen a lot of great players. And it's funny that like the players I sort of moved up here to play with have kind of sort of moved on like by this point. And so it's funny. So like likes of Michael Morgan and Gavin Cooper and all that were still, Justin O'Neill, all those sort of players were still here when I moved up in 2020. And that sort of enticed me so much to move to the club. And Greenie was great. Like every chat we sort of had, it was obviously a lot over the phone until I first flew up here. Just sort of meet with him and Peter Parr, and what's it called? And then I sort of, that was all I needed, was just to, when I spoke to Greenie, he just said, like, mate, the opportunity's here for you to sort of take that role at 9, and what's it called? Obviously, it'll come down to your footy, but I knew the opportunity was there, and he instilled me with a fair bit of confidence there, and that's kind of all I wanted, and in a club that I thought was going to progress the way I wanted to and help my football career. So that's what made the move up here, and it's turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made.
I absolutely love that. And, you know, you and I speak about this quite often because I found myself in a very similar situation when I was young. So I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I moved to the Warriors for the exact same reason, you know, and it's a tough decision, but, you know, at the end of the day, you want an opportunity to play, and you got to put your career and your long-term career first. So, yes, it is a tough decision, but it's the right decision for your career. Now, you've been up here, you know, for 5 years now. You've really found a home here at the Cows. You know, what advice would you give to maybe the younger player who's in that situation, you know, like, or having to move away from family or friends or comfort, you know, to chase, like, you know, your dream or to get outside your comfort zone? Would you have any advice to a younger player about that? Yeah,
it's probably I guess what a lot of people have heard over the years from anyone. It's sort of, things happen for a reason, and it's very hard to believe that when you tell yourself that when you're in that situation. Like, I remember like mum and dad saying that when I had to move, and I remember like calling them too, and I was probably like emotional in tears.
Yeah.
Like no one had to leave all my mates, and that opportunity wasn't there for me to sort of play NRL, and I knew I'd have to move away and leave my mates, like obviously unless I stayed with a Sydney club, but either way it was going to be different. And I guess sort of them saying that to me, like everything happens for a reason. Like wherever you go, like just keep working hard, play your best footy, and things will happen. And sort of got off the phone, like, right, I didn't believe that, sort of, pretty stubborn, like, you know. So I was like, oh, right, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. It honestly is, change is as good as a holiday. And I think that's one thing that helped me, is I've kind of always been like that. As much as I didn't want to leave my mates and stay around, like, the club and all that, I do enjoy change. Like, I embrace that and I buy in pretty well to the change. So, I guess that helped me a lot. So once I decided and committed that I was moving up here, all my sort of mindset shifted, and it was sort of, I'm putting everything into this, and this is, I'm going to make this be the best move for me. So I think that's probably advice I'd give to a young kid coming through is, it's not always going to be ideal, but when you decide what you're going to do and what your path's going to look like, that's where all your energy goes, and that's sort of, you've got to that's how drive comes to sort of make it the best move you've decided.
I love that. Bloody awesome advice. I just said before, you've been up here for 5 years now. I bet that 5 years has absolutely flown for you. You said it was a tough decision to leave the Dragons, and then once you made that decision, you put all the energy up here. Tell me about, the last 5 years up here. How, to me, like, you've made this really your home, like with regards to how settled you are, family, lifestyle, like even the boys. I spoke to Griff about this as well. For him moving from New Zealand to Townsville, it's like now, we're so lucky that I guess the closeness or the mates that we have up here. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, it comes off the back of, you spoke about Griff moving from Greymouth, me moving from, when I was from Sydney, that sort of, I guess that sort of makes that mateship. Yep. We're all from out of area. There's not too many. I think Feldy, Morgs was when I first moved up here, but maybe a couple of the young boys, but no one's really from Townsville. Everyone's from a little bit away, so no one's got too much family here other than their own immediate family. So it's pretty easy for us all to sort of see each other as family and help each other out, because we know how hard boys do it at times, and we need each other around. So I think that sort of creates that pretty well. Yeah,
100%. Couldn't agree more, mate. You've had your 5 years here have been phenomenal. Which I guess culminated in your Origin debut last year. Tell me about that. I know you're a proud New South Welshman, and you're in the squad the year before, but then made your debut last year, and tell me about that feeling representing New South Wales.
Yeah, I guess that sort of comes off the back of what we spoke about at the start, saying I was close enough to hate Queenslanders, but it's funny when I move up here and you're around at the Cowboys and the community, like you go to love it pretty quick. And obviously I love playing for the Cowboys, love playing for this community up here, and then just sort of flick that gear back into that sort of that drive that's always been there to play for New South Wales and play against some of your teammates and against like where you live and where I love living. It's hard. So but I think that was obviously a dream come true to be able to pull on that blue jersey. Is sort of something like always, like we said, having a dream. I had a dream to play NRL, but I think my biggest dream was to play Origin. I think that, like, growing up, like, I think that's probably when I say watching NRL and that I wanted to play it. I think probably more watching Origins and watching all the blokes sort of turn around and say they're junior club and cross their arms. That's I'm so glad they brought that back in the last couple of years, because being able to do that was... I almost wanted to do that as much as I wanted to play Origin. Like,
it's a proud moment, mate.
Yeah, just being able to sort of turn around and cross your arms. I still remember me and my brother practicing it in the lounge room growing up on a Wednesday night when Origin was on. We'd do it for an hour before the kickoff even started. Just sort of turning around, crossing my arms, saying Reece Robson, Wollongbar Cult. So, I had that down pat by the time I was 6. But that's sort of something like grew up doing, and then to be able to pull on that jersey, that was sort of a dream come true. That's what I wanted to do. I guess I felt more of the sort of, like I said, getting to call Dad and you asked me if he was emotional about making my NRL debut. That was just something that sort of happened. But being able to sort of call him and tell him I was playing my State of Origin debut, that's when was the first time I've really seen like my dad get emotional. He's sort of not too much like that, and that's when I think, like, I guess never spoken about, but we kind of both knew that's sort of always what I wanted to do is to play for New South Wales, and to be able to sort of pull that jersey on and run out there, mate, it's ridiculous. Like, obviously you'd probably have the same feeling playing the a grand final and that sort of thing, but that obviously I hadn't played in a GF or anything like that yet. So that for me, it was the pinnacle of anything I'd ever done. And to be able to pull that jersey on, the feeling, there's nothing quite like it. I'm sort of getting tingles now just thinking about it. Just sort of standing there with the boys and you're sort of singing the anthem and you're just looking for your family in the crowd, because obviously they get pretty good seats there just near the tunnel. So I knew they were in that area and my head was just moving, just trying to find them. There's that many people there waving flags and whatever. But I remember seeing my partner, Ellie, and mum and dad in the stands there and just sort of being able to look at them. Yeah, that's sort of where you sort of get that feeling in the back of your throat where, like, I'm the same. I'm never really too emotional, but it was kind of a weird feeling. Sort of you see them and you get that feel in the back of your throat and you go, oh, shit, this is, it sort of all hits you pretty quick. And then the mindset from that to sort of the anthem finishes and you're in position pretty quick to sort of receive the kickoff. It was, and that's sort of where the mindset changed, and it was just, like people say, it was sort of a different beast, and it lives up to everything everyone says. Like, it's sort of, you don't really, like, I was cooked in the first 15 minutes, like, and I think it was only 5 minutes into the game, Tommy Travojevic hurt his pec, I think it was, and he ended up coming off, and And Damien Cook, he was on the bench and he come in to play centre, and I remember thinking, fuck, I'm going 80 here.
I'm going 80
and this is
here.
5 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
And because we kind of, planned out scenarios at training as teams do, but
not that one.
You're hoping it doesn't happen. And I didn't really think that was going to happen. And that wasn't a scenario we really planned out. And so when he sort of gone to centre there, I'm thinking, shit, we got no one else playing centre for Cookie to come into 9. And that's when I was like, oh shit, I've got to go 80 here. And that was 5 minutes into the game. It wasn't too bad there. It was still nervous energy, sort of playing that first 5 minutes. And then it was about 15 minutes I was cooked, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I've got to go the rest here. And I guess and then that's kind of, I guess that first 15 minutes was out of the way, and you sort of settle into it. It's just like a game of footy. Like a lot of the Queensland blokes you're playing with, a lot of they're pretty young side, and I played with and against a lot of them coming through, and and it just turns into a game of footy then, and you sort of your mindset switches to like, we've got to win this game here. So I guess that sort of helped me a lot in that game, is when that mindset flicked to, all right, sort of the first 15's over of Origin, playing your first Origin, and then it's sort of that helps, and your mindset changes to, you're not thinking about yourself, you're just thinking about winning that game and for the teammate beside you and that jersey, and that's sort of what flips this switch pretty quick.
I remember watching and thinking, as soon as that happened, I was like, Robbo's going to go 80 here. Robbo's going 80. I'm watching the game, so I'm watching you so closely, going, go Robbo. I'm sitting on everything watching you. And then every pass, I'm like, oh, pill Robbo, no, great pill. So your first Origin, 80 minutes, like, mate, it's absolutely phenomenal, like you just spoke about. But we are in, I guess, enemy territory up here, Origin time. And as you said, you've played against a lot of the boys. You play with a lot of the boys. How, because there's times where you're getting up and, like, you're getting into Jeremiah, like, who you play with and train with every single day. Like, how have you found, or how did you find that aspect of the game where you, like, come up against your teammates, and it's like, for that couple weeks of the year, it's like you absolutely hate those boys, but then you absolutely love them the rest of the year. Is that something hard to do, or you kind of find that easy to kind of compartmentalize and switch over?
I probably would like to say it's a bit harder than it was. I think I'm pretty good at that. I flipped the switch pretty quick. I was all in New South Wales and the Blues, and I couldn't really give a shit on the night who they were, like whether I played with them, because I know they'd be thinking the same way. And I didn't find that hard at all. They were just another bloke wearing a maroon jersey that I didn't give a shit about that night. So, obviously, it's funny when you come back to training. You're back at training the next day together. I guess that's the funniest part, and that's where the sort of switch changes back.
It does switch back, doesn't it? Yeah,
it switches back so quick. Mate, after the game, it switches. As soon as that final whistle goes, you flick back pretty quick, and it's just, mate, to see like all those boys, like how happy they were for me making my debut too. Like that sort of changes the switch pretty quick, and like you said, you're back into playing alongside them and just riding them to play their best footy every week, and you just love watching how good they're going. It changes back pretty quick, but to switch it into Origin mode and to forget your teammates, and that wasn't too hard, and but you certainly notice it when you flick back and you want to see them do all the best like they do for your team and for themselves, and that at clubland it's quite easy to change back into that.
Because it is a very unique position, like I said. Like, not many teams or players would have that, where, like, you've got to make that switch and compartmentalise this section of football, like we spoke about before, and this here, and then back here, and it's like it takes a lot, I guess, of focus and having the right mindset to do that. So that's I guess a big plus for what you've been able to do. Maybe we've got a couple of questions to go, but what do you love? What do you love about playing in the NRL?
Think of what we spoke about. The tricky saying the days off. Mate, I think, obviously, I guess what people don't see is all the hardship and the sort of shit with rugby league.
Adversity,
I guess that's what a lot of people don't see, and the pressure. But it's just all worth it when it's sort of you get those highs that you just get in rugby league that, like, I don't know, other people might get in their lines of work, but I don't think I'd get any other way. Like, that's what makes it all worthwhile. Like, even like, you talk about, obviously everyone knows winning and like to be able to win a comp, like, I haven't had that yet, but hopefully soon. And that would be the ultimate, like, pinnacle, and just like winning games and playing semi-final footy and that we've done and won those games. Like, those feelings is what you play rugby league for. That's sort of the fire you get when that happens, and that's sort of what you go through all the shit for is to get those opportunities that you'll only get playing rugby league. And that's what I love about the game so much. And it gives you so much that you just can't get anywhere else. And I think that's what keeps you going. And through all those tough times, like I always say to like my old boy, when I'll check in and just call him and we'll have a chat through preseason. It's funny, like he must just get off the phone and go, geez, this is going to be a few months of shit calls with him through preseason, because he'll just ask me, how's everything going? And I fucking shit, like just pre-season getting flogged every day in the North Queensland sun, it's sort of the worst job in the world for a few months, but the mindset pretty quickly changes when you start playing footy again. It's the best job in the world for the next few years, and then he loves those calls when he can call and we just chat about how good footy's going and that, but it's sort of like I always say to him, it's the worst job in the world for a few months and then the best job for the rest. So and it's the highs that sort of outweigh the lows, and that's why I love playing the game.
And what would you say the hardest part of being an NRL player? You touched on a few there, but can you be more specific on exactly the hardest things you find being an NRL player?
I think, like we spoke about before, and we spoke about a bit earlier in the podcast, is caring. I think that's the hardest part, and pressure on yourself. Like we spoke about, like I'm trying to get better with that, and it makes it a lot easier having little Hazel at home and Ellie to go home to, and sort of flick your mindset pretty quick. But that's probably the hardest part about playing NRL is knowing. Just being able to switch off, and when you're at training, not caring as much. Like I know it's a funny thing to say, but it's so good for a rugby league player to be able to switch off and not care as much, like and sort of try things and not sort of dwell on it. And that sort of, when you sort of get better at that, it sort of only helps your game. Like just being able to switch off and try things and sort of just have a flush it mentality and just sort of, like that didn't work. Just sort of being able to sort of, just being able to play your game, train like day in, day out. You might stuff things up at training, and that's what training's for, but not going home and dwelling on it until your next session where you can fix it up. Like it's sort of, that's what I used to do, I think, a bit, is I'd used to stuff something up at training and I'd be filthy at myself until the next training or the next game where I was able to go out and fix that up. So and that's what I'd be thinking about, trying to work on at training to fix up those things so it's perfect. And I've worked a little bit with, like, I've got a new manager now, Joe Weeby, and he's really good with that, is sort of, things don't have to be perfect. Rugby league's not perfect. And I think that's something I've got to get a lot better at is just not understanding that a lot. Like, obviously I want everything to be perfect as everyone does, but it's not going to be, and just being able to flush it and go, and just make the next moment count. And that's sort of, like we spoke about, the sort of biggest progress in my game up since back then, coming into that pre-season for my first NRL season to now, is sort of just things aren't going to be perfect, and just sort of, and just being happy to sort of make sure that next thing is.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great advice for some younger players as well, who will definitely face the same challenges, because, you're right. You make errors, like stuff goes against you, and like you can't control what's happened, but you can control like your mindset, your approach to like what you do next, and having that flush it mentality. I think, it's definitely easier said than done, but I think as you get older and gain more experience, like it becomes easier because you're more comfortable with who you are as a person and compartmentalising your life, which you're doing a great job at the moment, mate. You mentioned before you had a beautiful little girl, Hazel. Mate, tell me what she's taught you about, maybe your perspective on life.
Oh, mate, it's just, I guess it's sort of, it helps you so much, like yourself. Like, I guess obviously, people probably, you got this beautiful little girl and she's perfect, and but I think, the biggest change is in yourself. It's sort of, you got that unconditional love, and that from a little one like that, it's sort of, she doesn't give a shit whether you're the worst football player in the world, whether you're the best football player, or whether you've never played a game. Like, she just loves you for being a dad, and I think that's the coolest thing about having a little bub that every dad would know. And it's just being able to come home and just see her smile. Like, I think, mate, like just the other day, like obviously you never want to see your little ones crook, and she was a little bit crook the other day, sort of, coughing and had a runny nose and all that sort of stuff. But she'd be sneezing, there'd be boogers out of her nose, and you'd be wiping it away, and she'd be still had the biggest smile on her face. And it's just, the cutest little thing to just know that, she's sort of, just doesn't care what's going on or what's happening. You're just her everything. That's probably the best part about it.
The awesome thing as well is like the experiences you get to bring along with her as well. Like you look back on some photos, and as she gets older, you'll be like, man, like that's, milestone game there, and she's like in the photo, or like, she's at an Origin game. You're like, oh, look at she's at all these big moments as well with you, which will be really, really cool, mate. What do you enjoy? What does Robbo enjoy doing outside of football, away from the footy?
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of. Boys always give me shit about this all the time, but mate, I can just potter for ages. But it's a weird thing. I can just I've got a shed out the back, which I finally got. Like I've sort of always been in an apartment, especially Sydney. And then when I first moved up here, I was in an apartment, so I've got like a yard now with a obviously a lot of my days off is now with Hazel and being a dad. But I can up there with the best of them. I can find shit to do around the house and just potter around my shed. I've restacked my shelves like 3 times already. I just love doing that sort of stuff. Like, and obviously, I love getting out there with the boys. Obviously, I was playing some shit golf there for a bit, but just started to get back into it and coming out there a bit more now. So I'm enjoying doing that now because I was playing a bit there a while ago and then just sort of gave it up for a bit, which sort of turned me into just finding shit to do around the house. But getting back out there now, which has been good. But I guess, mate, I'm sort of pretty cruisy. Like I love just sort of hanging around, being just being a dad to Hazel on my days off and going for a coffee with the boys and talking shit. That's pretty much me. I'm pretty simple with that sort of stuff. And I love me camping and that sort of stuff. And it's probably all year round. Like you said, we've got our off season there, but the rest of it, there's not any weekends of that to go away. So I sort of spend those weekends, and I say tidying up the shed is just getting it ready for that off season. Just sort of take off and get all my weekends back that you sort of miss out on during the season and that. So I sort of just plan and change shit around all year round for that.
Yeah, I love that. You're probably one of those guys that just looks out the kitchen window and just like looks at something and is like, I can do this. Oh, that needs to be done, something like that. Mate, last question for you. What does life look like for Robbo after football? Is there something that sort of you gravitating towards as like a job, or how you see your life living post-football? I mean, football's obviously a massive part of our lives and our identity, but, what do you see yourself doing after football? You've got a long time before this happens, but...
I don't know, That's sort of, I guess, like everyone always asks you that, but I don't know. And I've done a few years of my building apprenticeship, and that's obviously there to go back on. Dad being a builder, and that could be an option. But I guess as I play more football and that, I don't know if that's what I want to go back to or something in like a trade type, whether it's electrician or plumbing, something like that would be cool. It's just, I guess, knowing where I want to live after footy would probably help a lot with that, and that's what I don't know, because I love it up here, and obviously mum and dad are living down around the Goldie now, and but whether I want to live there, partners, families from Mackay, I don't know where I'm going to end up after football. So I guess depending on that, I'd love to sort of get into a trade and that, and up here it's a cruisy place to live, and that's something I'd be happy doing. So I don't really know what I want to do after football, but I do know I want to pack up for a bit and travel around Australia. That's something I've sort of been waiting to do. This whole sort of football journey. It's seeing like my brother, sister, family all done it, and it's just like my brother's sort of parked up over there at the moment in Western Australia, so he's living the life over there at the moment. So he'll send me a Snapchat every now and then, and I just won't reply because I'm just jealous of him over there, just sort of getting to sort of live something I want to do, and my partner's the same. She's sort of we're pretty keen to sort of just cruise after footy, go do that for a year or so, and then whatever I fall back into when I get back, sort of kind of leave that for an issue for then. I'll sort of worry about it then. Obviously, you try to set yourself up through football with different things, but as far as work and a job, I guess I'll start looking at that when we know where we want to end up, and I guess those sort of conversations are happening now. Like obviously, hopefully it's not for a long time, but sort of we'll figure it out eventually, and everything will happen for a reason.
Beautiful, mate. Well, we'll wrap it up there, mate. Your career's only half done. You've got a lot of stuff ahead to you, but you've already made some really tough decisions. Faced some adversity. Overcome a hell of a lot, and it's a credit to you. So, mate, thanks for coming on today, mate. Really appreciate you sharing your story, and it's only half unwritten. It's only half written, so. Mate, a lot to go, but thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
And that's it, guys, for another episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you do like and subscribe, drop us a comment, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.